There was a time when everything felt late. Late decisions, late progress, late results. Even when nothing was actually wrong, your body carried the sensation of being behind. And then, quietly, something changed. Not in your schedule, not in your responsibilities, but in your relationship with time itself. Nothing feels rushed anymore. Not because life slowed down, but because you stopped running inside it. Stay with me until the very end, and you'll understand why time never needed to be managed, only released. Most people believe urgency is caused by external pressure, deadlines, expectations, bills, age. They assume that when life demands more, the nervous system responds with speed. But urgency does not come from life. Urgency comes from resistance to life. It is the internal friction created when identity is split between where you are and where you believe you should already be. This is why two people can live the same schedule and experience time completely differently. One feels hunted by the clock, the other feels carried by it. The difference is not discipline, it is not productivity, it is not organization, it is integration. When identity is fragmented, time feels hostile. Every moment feels like a test. Every pause feels dangerous. Every delay feels like failure. Because the fragmented self believes it must constantly prove its worth. And time becomes the courtroom. But when identity integrates, time loses its authority. Not because you stop caring, but because you stop measuring yourself against imaginary deadlines. Neville Goddard spoke of this indirectly when he described living from the end. To live from the end is not to wait, it is to remove urgency. Because urgency only exists when you believe fulfillment is somewhere else. Once fulfillment is assumed, time stops chasing you. What if the reason you always felt behind was not because you were late, but because you were arguing with where you already were? Think back to a period in your life when time felt heavy. Not busy, heavy. The kind of heaviness where even rest felt guilty, where slowing down felt irresponsible, where pauses were filled with mental noise. That was not time pressuring you. That was identity under negotiation. Part of you trying to arrive, part of you afraid of arriving, part of you clinging to effort as proof of value. So the body stayed tense, urgency lived in the chest, the breath stayed shallow, moments were consumed instead of inhabited. But then, often without ceremony, something softened. You didn't fix your schedule, you didn't master time management, you simply stopped feeling chased. And that is when the strangest thing happened. Life did not slow down, it became more efficient. Decisions happened faster, actions aligned more easily, outcomes appeared with less friction. Because time does not like resistance, it expands when allowed. There was a woman, let's call her Mara. For years, Mara lived with the constant feeling that she was running out of time. Not in a dramatic sense, but in a quiet, chronic way. Every birthday tightened something in her chest. Every delay felt personal. She rushed conversations, she rushed choices, she rushed healing. Until one day, after nothing particularly changed, she noticed something unusual. She was no longer in a hurry. Not because she had made it, not because her life was resolved, but because the part of her that needed to outrun time had finally relaxed. Later she said, "I didn't gain time. I stopped fighting it." That is when time stopped fighting back. Pause here with me. If you felt this softening, this quiet end of urgency, leave a simple declaration in the comments. I'm not behind. Then let's continue. One of the deepest distortions around time is the belief that delay means something went wrong. That if something hasn't happened yet, you failed to align properly. But delay is not resistance. Delay is integration in motion. When identity is fragmented, delay feels punishing. It feels like rejection, like proof you misstepped, like evidence you are out of sync. But when identity integrates, delay changes texture. It becomes neutral, sometimes even protective. Neville understood this when he spoke of the bridge of incidents. A bridge does not rush itself, it unfolds. And every interval on that bridge serves a function. But the fragment itself cannot tolerate intervals. It wants completion now, because it does not trust itself to remain stable in the meantime. Urgency is distrust. Integration is patience without effort. What if the delay you resented was the exact space required for you to stop forcing the outcome? When urgency dissolves, something subtle happens in the nervous system. The body stops bracing. And when the body stops bracing, perception changes. Moments feel wider. Conversations feel slower, but deeper. Waiting no longer feels empty. This is why people often say, "Time feels different now." It's not poetic, it's physiological. A regulated nervous system experiences time as spacious. A dysregulated one experiences time as threat. So when nothing feels rushed anymore, it's not spiritual bypassing, it's safety, inner safety. And inner safety reorganizes reality. You may notice this first in small ways. You don't check the clock as often. You don't panic when plans shift. You don't rush to fill silence. You trust pacing. And pacing is different from slowness. Pacing means the next step appears when it needs to, not earlier, not later, just when it fits. If this relationship with time feels familiar, if urgency is loosening its grip, there is a 21-day challenge linked in the description. Not to make things happen faster, but to stabilize this inner safety so time remains an ally, not a threat. You can explore it when it feels right. Now, let's go deeper. Here is the paradox few people expect. When urgency ends, life often accelerates. Not chaotically, not dramatically, quietly, because effort was the bottleneck. For years, you believed pushing moved things forward, but pushing actually narrowed perception. It forced linear thinking. It created tunnel vision. When you stop pushing, options reappear. Synchronicities surface. Timing improves. This is why integrated people often seem lucky. They are not. They are unblocked. What if slowing down internally is what allows life to speed up externally? Acceleration without pressure feels almost invisible. You look back and realize things resolved faster than expected. But while it was happening, there was no rush, no countdown, just flow. This is the tempo Neville lived from. Not urgency, not waiting, assumption. Assumption collapses time, because when something is assumed, you are no longer negotiating with when. You are already there, and time reorganizes around that fact. You may notice this especially in work and money. Deadlines stop feeling aggressive. Productivity becomes quiet. Stability appears without micromanagement, not because you stopped caring, but because you stopped hovering. Hovering creates resistance. Trust removes it. Here is the truth promised at the beginning. Nothing feels rushed anymore because you stopped using time to measure your worth. The clock was never the enemy. The comparison was. When identity integrates, comparison dissolves. You are no longer racing anyone. You are no longer racing yourself. You are simply living. And life has its own rhythm, one that does not need supervision. This is not laziness. This is alignment. And alignment feels calm. If your days feel quieter now, not emptier but steadier, that is not stagnation. That is regulation. And from regulation, everything moves correctly. If this way of being resonates, If you want to remain close to this pace, stay aligned, not by doing more, but by choosing environments that respect this rhythm. Subscribing here is not about content, it's about continuity, about staying near a frequency where time is no longer a threat. Because from here on, life does not rush you, it walks with you. And that changes everything.